All right, live from the beautiful Rainforest Cafe for me and Peter, and from our commissioner Ash's basement, Luke over there in the middle. This is the New York Power Hour episode number 13. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Luke, Peter, how are we doing on this wonderful Wednesday night?
Doing a lot better than I thought I'd be after that nice Mets win.
I wish I got an invite to the Rainforest Cafe, but I mean, I guess I'm satisfied down here. There's water, and
somebody has to watch Ash's dogs while he's away.
Yeah,
while he's watching the Yankees live, I have to stay here in his basement and just rot.
It is fair to me that somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be left there to make sure everything doesn't go crazy. Got a lot of things to watch over there. Yadier Molina for one. Ash's dog.
So he's going to keep an eye on Ty too. Like, apparently he's also down here, so we got to keep an eye on him as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ty in a bit since last week, so I don't know how he is. But speaking of seeing people, I did see this photo of Peter earlier in the week that I wanted to open up the show with to talk about, and I have some questions here to think about here. So with pizza being created in New York, right? I know that this is a New York show, so we can talk about this.
That's factually incorrect. We're already starting off with a lie.
And so. Luke, back me up here, since you've corrected me on the championship count for Edge, right?
Yeah.
You've also heard, I believe, that pizza's been created in New York, right?
It's a fact. It's like, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly, and then pizza and pineapple also. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I saw this picture of Peter out there in the wild, and I appreciate that you got the whole banner. You got a 2-person thing going on, but I don't know. I just think you're wrong on this one, Pete. I really think that this might be something that you might want to back down from a little bit. And I wanted to get your opinion here before we got into things that we might agree on.
I will die before I back down from pineapple not belonging on pizza. If pineapple on pizza has,
why are you so against? Why are you so against it? That's
fucking disgusting. Fruit doesn't belong on fucking pizza. What are we talking about?
It's delicious. Have you tried it? Have you had it before?
Do I look like such a low life piece of shit that I would try just pineapple on pizza?
I got a question for you. You just said verbatim, fruit doesn't belong on pizza, right? Do you have your
don't do that tomato bullshit?
Don't do that pizza without tomatoes on it? Because for me, that feels. I think tomatoes are a mainstay on pizza, and I'd be pretty offended if somebody tried to give me a pizza without tomatoes on it.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, so now we've established Peter just likes cheese on bread, and that's pizza.
Okay, I kind of get it now, because if it was just
I
probably wouldn't put the pineapples on it.
Now you're trying to say that I enjoy Altoona pizza. This is how dare you? This is too far.
This unprompted told me you don't want fruit on your pizza, so that eliminates pineapples.
Tomato is fruit by technicality. It does not belong on. It's not.
Listen, by technicality is still correct. Tomatoes are still a fruit. Whether you want to debate this or not, tomatoes.
Well, you know what? If we're going that far, according to the New Jersey cafeteria laws, pizza does count as a fruit on the food pyramid. So I guess
so putting pineapples on it should only make it better, then, right? More nutritious, in my opinion.
No.
I also just want to make mention that Ty also would like some cheese on bread down there, and he is still. So, Luke, when we're done with the show, please check on our friend Ty over there in the background and make sure that he finishes his article so he can get out of the basement for tomorrow's show. But also, let's just make sure he's okay. I like Ty. I've got a soft spot for him. I feel like he's the type of guy that would be open to more fruit in their life. So. I don't understand why Peter's so upset, but since we started off making Peter upset, we should continue down that route. And let's talk about one of the big things that has been going on in the Mets world right now, which is right off the bat, besides the fact they've been losing every goddamn game under the sun besides today, is the fact that they optioned Francisco Alvarez down to the minors, right? And so let's throw this one up here. This is, and Peter, you put this together. So this is what he's put together so far this year, right? In terms of Francisco Alvarez?
Yeah, I mean, I did not put his defensive stats in there, mainly just because I didn't have the time. But
I'll have that for you in a moment, because Luke was kind enough to provide that as well.
Really, the biggest issue with Alvy is the fact that he stopped pulling balls. It's weird because his swing speed and his swing length is more or less the same as it was last year, but he's not pulling balls anymore. It seems to be he's waiting. He's letting the ball go deeper into the zone before he swings. So, the average honestly isn't that different to what he's been in years past, but only 3 doubles and 3 home runs with 38 strikeouts. Like, he's always going to strike out a lot, but only 3 doubles and 3 home runs for the year. That's definitely concerning. And then when you, perfect timing, when you throw in those defensive stats, yes, the game that he got sent down, he did hit his 3rd home run, but he also had some pretty egregious defensive errors where that was the thing that was keeping him up, was he could still call a good game. He frames well. He throws people out, but he made some pretty terrible mental mistakes in the field, which if you're going to do both, you got to go down. Hopefully this is a nice mental reset for him. He can come back and be the Alvy that we all know he can be. Again, he's only 23. So as far as overall worry, I don't have none. At this point, the Mets Up podcast talked about it. At this point in Cal Raleigh's career, who is potentially has a chance to win AL MVP. I know that might upset Luke, but he has a chance. I believe he only had 22 games in Double A at this same point in their life. So Alvy is, I'm not even close to giving up on him. I'm hoping this is just a nice mental reset.
Yeah. It's just a couple things too. Like on the Cal Raleigh thing, I mean, like if you look at it a couple of years ago, I don't even think Seattle had Cal Raleigh pegged as their starting catcher. I think they were still trying to figure it out. I think they still had Tom Murphy. They signed Mitch Garver. So they weren't fully committed to Cal Raleigh. So there's still time for Alvarez to figure it out. Peter, for you, do you think Luis Torrens is your catcher for the rest of the year, or do you think he's just a stopgap to get Alvarez going?
No, I think it's just a stopgap. I really don't see Alvarez being down there for more than a month, and that might even be a long stretch. I mean, Torrens, he's great defensively. He hits just enough where you feel okay. So it's not like the Mets are really losing a ton while he's out as of right now. But no, Alvy's going to be the guy. I think this is just a short mental reset for him. Yeah. I don't know, Ram and Peter, I don't know your thoughts on this too, but the Yankees went through this thing with, this guy named Gary Sanchez. I know you guys had Gary Sanchez for a little bit, and it was a frustrating run because he had a year and a half where he was the best hitting catcher in the MLB, and then just fell off the face of the earth, right? And just didn't have the defensive stats to really justify having him behind the plate anymore, right? And for me, a catcher in the MLB, I'll take the 236 average. I'll take the 652 OPS if you're good at framing and you're good at throwing guys out, right? Like I will absolutely look past all of the bad batting metrics if you're just good behind the plate. And it just doesn't seem like Alvarez is there yet for you to just ignore the poor hitting. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that is. Well, yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I talked enough. You go ahead.
No, we're good. I think that last year I was one of those guys that was really on the Alvarez train because there were some stats that showed that the Mets pitching staff performed better with Alvarez behind the plate, and they seemed to enjoy him calling the game. And I thought that was a great thing. I'm like, you know what? Even if you're getting replacement level offense from the guy, if the pitchers are like, this is our guy and he frames well and he can throw guys out, and he's improved his ability to throw guys out on that because he wasn't that good at that before. So at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, you can bat at the bottom half of my lineup and do your thing. And he showed a lot of power. He showed 30 home run power over 162 game stats. He's very young. I was very impressed by him. I still am. I think he is the future as well. I think Peter said that, and I want to echo that. I do think this is the guy that's going to figure it out. I'm mixed on sending him down because I did want to see him get a little bit more time up here. That being said, Torrens is doing what he needs to right now as a replacement level catcher. And I guess it allows the Mets to send him down and try to see if he needs the mental reset. He needs the coaching. I get a little nervous on that. I'm always a big guy on letting them play it out in the major leagues. But if it's gotten to the point where you can't justify putting him in the lineup and the Mets are looking to continue winning and figure out what's going on, you might need to let him get that reset in the minors. I've kind of have to bite my tongue on this one. But I think that he is a guy that can give you a lot more than just the basics of catcher. I agree with you, Luke, in the idea that if he's going to bat 230, 240, but he can give me 20 to 30 home runs, he frames fine, the pitcher's ERA is solid when he's in there, then I'm pretty happy. That's good, especially at 23. You're going to do that for quite a few more years.
But even for me, like even if you hit 10 home runs, right, and you're above average in framing, you're above average in throwing runners out, I'll take that. I mean, I'll take that at the end of my line.
Yeah, I mean, to expand a little bit on what Ram was saying, last year the Mets record with Alvarez was 65 and 35. So the pitchers have openly admit that they do like throwing to Alvarez. Now I think the reason why he got sent down is twofold. While Torrens has slowed down as a little bit as of late, he was playing well enough where he deserved playing time. And if you're trying to win games, you have to go with the hot hand. And number two, his bad approach at the plate really seemed to start to affect his defense. Luke, you kind of compared him potentially to Gary Sanchez, but Gary Sanchez was never good at defense. So if Alvarez, if he can kind of fix his defense and go back to how it was last year, even if he's slightly below average with the bat, I think he's going to start anyway.
Yeah, and just to clarify something, because I know I've done a lot of nonsense things on here. At no point was I comparing Alvarez to Gary Sanchez. They are two completely different players. I was just kind of prefacing saying, we had to deal with the bad hitting catcher after such great potential, and he didn't have the same defensive metrics that Alvarez had.
New York Mets legend Gary Alvarez. He played 2 games with us.
It's a tough one for me because I was really big on that dynasty buy into Francisco Alvarez, that he's going to be a superstar, and I was really excited. I'm not 100% sure I know what's going on with him offensively. I know that there's been a lot of talk about the fact that the Eric Chavez approach hasn't necessarily worked for him. That being said, outside of the fact that the Mets have had a really rough stretch, they're still pretty much in the top half of the league in most hitting metrics. So I'm not willing to jump off the idea and put Aaron Chavez in the firing squad yet. That being said, I know you are. I do believe that for the most part that hitting doesn't really have a one-size-fits-all approach. And I feel like with Alvarez, you've got to make those adjustments where he might need to work with somebody else for a bit. And I can be calm about that because the power is still clearly there. And to Luke's point, I mean, yeah, even if he's only going to give me 20 a year as a catcher, right, that's still more than you would be happy for. If he's batting 7th, hitting 20 home runs for you, and he continues to frame well, and he's throwing out runners, and the pitchers like throwing to him, you got a starting catcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on from Alvarez, I will at least allow me to be upset for a second, because I think that's fair. We talk a lot about David Peterson on the show, and I am a huge David Peterson fan, as is Peter. And David Peterson finally, after a long wait where I've aged many years, had a bad start the other day against the Phillies. And I do think it's important to get to that, where we've gone from you just got DP'd to Peterson got DP'd. So that was the not so fun run against the Philadelphia Phillies the other day. And Luke, since you give me time to talk about Dobbins, I will allow you to speak for a moment here.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had an opportunity to sit down and watch Sunday Night Baseball, and it was really interesting watching the first couple innings. He was just very dominant, and then he got around to the second time through, and they tagged him. I mean, they tagged him a couple times. The walks, there was a couple of walks in the 4th inning, I want to say. There was a couple of, low velocity hits, and then Schwarber just hit a bomb, like an absolute rocket to center field off Peterson. And you give all the credit to Schwarber there. I know he's worked over the last couple of years to get better hitting against left-handed pitchers. So all the credit to him. But when y'all are watching the game, did you feel like it was more the Phillies just hitting well, or just Peterson not pitching well on Sunday?
Well, honestly, I think it was a little bit of a combination of both. I did read some rumors, although the Mets haven't said anything officially, but it might have looked like Peterson hurt something during that the fourth inning, it looked like he was kind of grabbing at his hip, which he has had surgery on in the past. I don't know if that was just a weird stress thing or something that was actually bothering him. But overall, I'm not worried about Peterson. I mean, the 2 starts he had before that, he pitched a complete game, and then he went 7 strong. Unfortunately, he went out for the 8th and wasn't able to get out of that. But listen, I think it was just a bad inning. These happen sometimes. Unfortunately, it happened in a really bad stretch, but he's been the Mets' workhorse so far, so I'm not going to crucify him over having one bad inning. You're muted, Ram.
I do think that Peterson was due for a bad start, so at the end of the day, it's just one of the things I got to live with. The Phillies are a good offense. Kyle Schwarber's the guy that got him. It is what it is. The walks will kill anybody. And it ticked me off because actually, if you go back to that Braves game where he still threw a quality start, he was going through 7 and he had only 1 run allowed, and he went into the 8th and walked the opening hitter. The walks can come back to bite him, and that's something I'd like to see him work on, and it does tick me off. But I am not that worried about David Peterson. Somebody I am worried about, and I think that you are also all worried about, Peter, is somebody that I'll bring up right now, is Griffin Canning. And this is also another graphic that you put together. And Griffin Canning has looked a lot more like the guy that we found off the scrap heap from the Braves in these recent starts. Griffin Canning is a tough one because with him and Clay Holmes and even McGill, the Mets have been trying to piecemeal their rotation for a long time, and they've been really happy to get what they have been getting. But Griffin Canning has looked a lot more human and subhuman in a way if you look at those stats in his recent starts. So what prompted you to talk about Griffin Canning, Peter, and what did you want to say?
Well, honestly, it seems like the hitters have kind of figured him out. In a lot of his starts, it seemed like he would be kind of pitch backwards. He would start off with some breaking stuff and then kind of go with the fastball. And it's a combination, I think, of a lot of things. Mainly the number one thing being the hitters kind of figuring him out. But he got off to a great start, better than even I think the most positive Met fan would think that he would do. But it's just concerning, especially with everything going on around. He's never been a guy that has gone very long in the starts. So in 2 starts, 9.1 innings. He's given up almost as much runs as he has innings pitched. So, if he's not able to figure it out, obviously Montas had a much better start last game than anyone thought he would. So that might kind of fix that problem. But a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how the Mets had one of the best pitching depth in the league. And that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore.
Yeah, look at the rotation right now, right? I'm assuming Peterson's at the top with Sengerhurt. Behind him is Clay Holmes, and then Montas, Canning. What happened there?
Blackburn,
right? You thought Minai was going to be back soon. The recent news says he's not. He's had a setback, so that's going to be a little bit further off. It just seems like attrition is starting to hit the Mets. And I know I talked about this at the beginning of the year. You talk about the law of averages as well. Eventually he was going to catch up to this rotation, and we can live in fantasy land and think that y'all were going to roll throughout the season with this phenomenal rotation, but eventually it was going to catch up. But the hope was that the bats were going to figure it out, and it just doesn't seem like the bats are figuring it out either. It just seems like a bad storm for the Mets right now.
Yeah. I don't think.
Go ahead, Peter.
I don't think anybody thought the Mets would maintain having the best pitching ERA in baseball. The hope is they're just not as bad as the median. They kind of settles there. But yeah, I do agree. A lot of the Mets pitchers, with the exception of Peterson, haven't gone very deep very long. So the bullpen has to eat a lot of those innings, and I think we're starting to see the effects of that now too. I think the bullpen's completely taxed. The starters don't go deep, and the bats. If the bats aren't picking them up, obviously they won today, but before then, the last 11 games, 1 win, 10 losses.
Yeah, and that was actually something I had talked with you guys about discussing on the show, is that the Mets bullpen issues is part of it is because of the fact that they've overtaxed their bullpen. Right, and there's no two ways about it. Like at the end of the day, you were getting good innings from Canning and Holmes, and even Sanger, right? But you were getting like 5 innings out of those guys. So you're paying 4 innings per game out there. You're sending out your relievers, and these are guys that Brazoban has been serviceable, but he has moments to be blown up. Reed Garrett has been pretty good in short stints. For the most part, he looked like a little bit weaker, right? And Stanek, same thing. These guys are good, but at some point, the law of averages comes and fatigue comes in. You have pitched, I think they have the most innings pitched for a bullpen up to this point in the year. And that made the team ERA thing look really interesting going into this last stretch of 10 games because the starting rotation was getting by, but you were relying on the bullpen day in and day out, and it is going to get exhausting because although the Mets pitching lab has done some work and got some guys to figure some things out, at the end of the day, it is difficult. Like, we're about halfway through the season now, right? If not, we're a couple games off halfway through the season. And so it makes sense that they're going to show some signs of fatigue and being taxed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess my question to you guys too, and I know we've talked at length on this show about it. When are you going to go down to the minors and grab some? Are you going to grab the McLean? Are you going to grab the Jonathan? When do you start going to the well for that?
Well, that's the $1 million question, I think. Unfortunately, right now, none of them are on the 40-man roster. However, Nolan McLean does have to end up on the roster at some point this year, or I believe he can end up on the Rule 5 draft. Yeah. Tong doesn't have to. So I don't think he's going to get called up this year. But with McLean, he hasn't pitched. He hasn't solely focused on pitching for a full year. So while he's been fantastic, and I love him, and I like on paper, sure, you should start him. I could see David Stearns wanting to hold back, calling him up until he at least pitches a full year.
I think they're holding on that for a while because here's the thing, too. You treat a lot of starters with kid gloves these days. Like even you see Jacob Mizorowski's over there killing it for the Brewers, right? He's getting like 5 innings. He's getting 75 to 85 pitches. And so the idea is, all right, maybe we bring up a guy like McLean and he gives us 5 great innings every time out, but that's not helping his development as much, and it's not helping the team either, right? It's just giving you what you've been already working with. So you need to
it doesn't solve the issue that you're talking about here. You're still taxing your bullpen. And the other thing too is you're making your bullpen so vulnerable throughout the year, right? Like we talk about second time, third time through the rotation. It's the same thing with the bullpen. You see these guys all throughout the year. You see how they're pitching. It's twofold, right? You're taxed, and guys are seeing how you're pitch. Are seeing your pitches more often, and it's not a good combination right now.
Yeah, and so to add on to that too, my biggest thing is that I feel like since AJ Minter went down, they have been really confused and trying to figure out that left-handed lockdown reliever situation. They just acquired another guy in terms of Dickie Lovelady, which was a meme for what it was, but they had Dickie up there, they had Castillo up there, they had Brandon Waddell who got brought back up because they optioned Lovelady. Right, so they're trying to figure this out, and Brooks Laley is on the mend, and Brooks Laley will make it back up, and he's going to immediately be thrown into major innings for the Mets. But one of their biggest needs right now is a lockdown left-handed reliever for the bullpen, because they've been able to piece things together with guys like Garrett and even Brazoban have been working as crossover guys and getting lefties and righties out. And Edwin Diaz has been back on track and had a really good lockdown year. So kudos to that. But you want that late game lefty. Minter was doing the job for you early on, and Minter was being used early and often. So you want somebody to replace that AJ Minter. Like, yeah, you'll be happy if Rayleigh comes up and you can get anything out of him recovering from injury, but you're clearly missing that spot because if you look at the amount of lefties they've gone through alone, right, Peter, you can probably attest to that. You've seen it. They're trying to figure out getting themselves a lefty reliever, and right now that's not it. To me, it feels like the classic Stearns acquisition. Just a small left-handed reliever who's going to be consistent for a small prospect. They're not going to make any huge waves, but it's going to pay dividends for this team because you're going to need some fresh blood in that bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't foresee the Mets, as much as they need to, making a move for a left-handed reliever until Rayleigh can prove that he, either just isn't, if he isn't effective enough, I think they might make a move then for somebody more substantial. You brought up Lovelady. They already released him. I don't think they set him down. I think they just outright released him. So I think honestly, it's just going to be a lot of that, signing these random relievers to 1-year deals, and then just kind of calling people up, releasing people until Rayleigh gets there.
I still worry about it because Rayleigh's coming off an injury too. So even if he gives you good innings, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're saying, all right, this is our only guy going in. I feel like they know better than that, and they don't really have those options. And I'll be the first one to say nice things about Tong and McLean and even Sproat, even though he struggled. I know that they can figure these things out, but you need the bullpen help right now. You need a left-hander in that pen, and I think that's one of the things that have been killing them late on too, because there's some guys like lefty matchups that just aren't fun for the Mets. And there are teams like Acuna's a switch hitter, and you've got Matt Olson in that lineup too, just them alone, right? Schwarber's the guy who did it for Philly, but Harper will be in there too. You need a lefty in this divisional race to be able to be your lockdown guy that you can call on because of the quality of bats you're going to be facing at the end of the day. And so I'm big on that. I think that's one move they need to make yesterday rather than like waiting a little bit longer, because they're going to need the help. And you have the prospect depth. You've got guys you can move. Right, you've got guys on the lower end that have been shooting up the ladder in prospect rankings like Jack Weninger and AJ Ewing this year. You have names that you can move, and you're clearly focusing on your development. Go out and get a guy, because you're taxing your bullpen too much right now, way too much.
Agreed. I just don't think Stearns is going to do it.
I think he has to, and I think he knows he has to. I think he knows that he's going to have to get a bullpen arm before the deadline, and I think that's going to be really the mantra for any contending team right now. I mean, it's the same story in every trade deadline, right? I mean, you see 10s and 20s of 30 relievers move at the deadline, and it's just, we picked up this piece, and here he is in October now, pitching the 7th or 8th inning, getting the bridge to my guy who's been the closer all year, right?
Yeah, it's a bullpen game now more than ever, right? I mean, people are getting lit up over certain starts and stuff like that. I mentioned Mizorowski. He went 5 innings today. He was great for 5 innings, but he went 5 innings, right? And that's considered now. We have people adjusting stats. Quality start used to be 6 innings, 3 runs or less allowed, right? Now you've got quality appearance 3s for guys who are going like 5 2/3, allowing like 1 run, 2 runs, because people are quick trigger on that bullpen. We even talked about this before, about the idea of like people who were, I think we're talking about the general MLB show, right? We're not going to see pitcher wins is the thing. We may never see another 300-game winner, right? Because at the end of the day, like, it just doesn't happen that way. Pitchers are not winning at the rate that they did before, which is why it's become kind of an obsolete stat. But at the end of the day, you're seeing these guys go 5 more often than you do go 7. So the bullpen is one of the most important things in the game. I do agree with Luke. I think he's going to have to face the music and make that move. And I understand why you would think he wouldn't make it yet, Peter. It makes perfect sense based on who David Stearns is. But I think at some point, especially after a stretch like this one, right, where we were just assed out and we looked horrible as a team, this is one of them where you say, all right, that's at least the move you need to make to put some life back into this team.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I don't want to be right. Hopefully my track record continues and I am wrong. But I know he's not a lefty, but a guy that I really like is Betnar over with the Pirates. Now, obviously, he would have to accept not being the closer here because Edwin Diaz has been great. He's really been the only player that hasn't been overtaxed. The Mets have been very careful the way they use him. So I would love for them to add them, and then hopefully another lefty. I don't. Who do you guys think could be a good lefty piece for the Mets to get?
I don't have a lefty in mind yet. I got to be honest with you, because I also don't know if they'll go out and make that move right away. I felt like them bringing up Waddell today was kind of their last chance of saying, all right, we're going to see if this will work for a little, and then we'll pursue somebody else, because I figured that was their let's go as in-house as much as we can, Stearnsian logic, until we have to physically, literally make a move. And I mentioned just now, we were talking about the fact that this recent stretch has not been good for the Mets. I can pull this up here. This is a general. I mean, they won today. They did win today, and we can talk about that. But let's take a look at some of the numbers on here. And you can see here, Blackburn included, look at the goddamn ERAs, man.
Yeah, it's just, honestly, it's atrocious. Reed Garrett, he did the same thing last year. He started off really good, and then he was just absolutely the drizzling shits. And then he got put in the IL, and then he came back and was fine. So I hope he doesn't have to go on the IL and kind of figure it out. But I think it's a huge case of overexposure. Braziban, I feel like he's pitched almost every game in the past couple days, and it's again like that's just not him. Blackburn, I will give him a slight bit of a pass because a lot of that ERA came from his relief appearance, and he has openly said that he isn't comfortable coming out of the bullpen. But still, overall, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think what stands out to me about this here is that we talked a lot early on in the year about if the Mets, what they were doing was sustainable because of the fact that runners in scoring position hitting was ass. And you see what's going on here is Alonso was carrying so much of the offensive output for a while. So much of it. He was hitting at an elite pace to the point where now that he has slowed down to where he is slumping, the Mets offense looks absolutely dead. Lindor usually is a second half player, but he was doing okay to start the season. Now it feels like they kind of slumped at the same time. In fact, the only guy who has been generally producing numbers right now is and was today Juan Soto. Right, and you can see that his average was about average, but he's been starting to hit home runs. I'll pull up this one about today's game here, where you can see that today you called it the Juan Soto game.
Well, I didn't. I didn't. Gary Cohen called it the Juan Soto game.
But you can see here that production from the bottom half of the lineup, Clay Holmes gave your standard 5 innings and 1 run again. Worked the bullpen, but it made it work, right? But Juan Soto had 2 home runs. The Mets absolutely needed this win today. Right? I mean, thank God they won because they needed this win today. They had lost 5 straight against the Braves going into today, and they gave the Braves an opportunity to get back into this 3-man race in the NL East, didn't they?
Yeah. And I one thing that I want to point out on that stat, if you go back to the other one, besides runners in scoring position, another huge talking point with the Mets lineup has been the bottom half has given you nothing. Today, 7 hits, 3 RBIs, and only 2 strikeouts for the bottom 6 of your lineup. That's fantastic. If they can, obviously, they're probably not going to do that well on average for the rest of the year. But if you can get something even close to that, it's going to take a little bit of pressure off the top guys. And, as good as Soto's been, I did see that stat circling around Twitter, his negative 1.88 clutch. I'll be honest, I don't exactly know what that means. I know there were some games where he got out when if he hit a home run or got a hit, the Mets could have tied or won the game. But I don't put that on Soto. I thought that was an interesting talking point.
Soto's now up to 8 home runs in June, and the Heat is 19th of the night today with the 2nd home run. Those are power numbers you're pretty comfortable with. I mean, if he's on pace for 30 to 35 home runs with the on-base percentage that he provides, he's hitting the ball that hard, that is the guy that you signed. I know people were freaking out in the beginning because the metrics look pretty and the counting numbers weren't there. Well, guess what? The counting numbers are here. He just hit number 19. All right, that's his 8th in June, and he might hit another one before June's up. Either way, 8 in June is fine. He's doing what you're hoping him to do right now. But the issue is, as we go back here, like nobody else is. That's the problem. So he's not doing enough to carry. Like Alonso was hitting with runners in scoring position. In fact, for a while, he was the only guy hitting with runners in scoring position on this team. And the clutch thing is interesting, at least in the sense for Soto, because he might be getting the counting stats, but if he's not going to hit in runners in scoring position, the Mets are going to struggle. And that's where we're at right now, where everybody's not hitting with runners in scoring position and they're suffering. So if the pitchers blow up a little bit, like Canning or those other guys or any of the bullpen guys, they're just assed out. And this has been the worst stretch of the season for them so far. And they're still now, 2 games above? I mean, they're still a couple games above 500, right? And I believe the Phillies were losing when I last checked. I don't know if they did lose.
I'll check that for you.
Yeah, I'll have you guys checking because we're not that far off them now. I mean, we are we're about like a game or 2 off them now.
The Phillies lost, so it should be a game behind them.
Yeah, just a game behind, right?
Half a game back.
Right. So if we have weathered the worst stretch of the season so far and we're only half a game out of the division, the Mets can be okay. But it's going to be frustrating unless they start making an addition. I think it's about time to start looking into additions because you can't really endure another stretch like this in the middle of the season. And so I'll punt it to you for a little bit, Luke, because the Yankees have also been in a bit of a tailspin. Not too much of it as we have, but you have been, I think, going into today, we're 3-7 in their last 10. So they were trying to figure their own things out. What's going on over in the Bronx, and what's been pissing you off? Because I know you've been having trouble watching your team just like we have.
No, I mean, it's just been a struggle having them, put games together. It just seems like the team is very dependent on Aaron Judge, and again, he's a Major League Baseball player, and he's gonna go through those phases, right? I mean, he was hitting well over 400 to start the year. Eventually, he was gonna come down, but the hope is that the rest of the team just kind of picks up where he left off, and no one's really doing that. No one's really doing that, and it's just poor team at bats right now. It's I watched one game and it was just they were attack, not working counts, and here you are in the 8th inning and you've barely put 80 pitches on the starting pitcher, right? There needs to be a better team at bats from the team, and you can't just be so dependent on Aaron Judge. The starting pitching has been phenomenal. I mean, there's no question there, and it hasn't fallen off. I mean, Max Fried's been great. Carlos Rodon's been great. I spoke so highly of Will Warren last week. Just as a 5th starter. So that I have no qualms with how the starting pitching has been. The bullpen's been a little bit rocky here and there, but it's close run games, and it shouldn't be. Like, this offense is supposed to be much better than the way it's performing, and it's making games a lot tighter than it needs to be.
Yeah, so I've been kind of on that bandwagon sometimes of feeling that the Yankees kind of go with the ebbs and flow of Aaron Judge, right? And it looks like if he's not doing Superman stuff, and I mean literally like, AL MVP level stuff, the Yankees look like they try to struggle to put things together. And I'm sensing that you kind of agree with me in that moment there.
No, and we saw it in 2023. I mean, we had the best record in the MLB going in, I think it was the middle of July. We're going into that series in LA, and then Judge ran into the wall, like doing Superman stuff, just like literally running through a wall, breaking his toe, and then the wheels just fell off, and we didn't even make the playoffs in 23, right? The team comes and goes as Judge plays, and he's going to figure it out, right? He's going to get back to that level. It's just the hope is you have 8 other guys in that lineup that can just pull it together and get some run support.
So I'm not going to ask you for a name, but I'm kind of going to position it the way Peter and I were talking. I went out and I said, hey, I think a left-handed reliever is priority 8 for the Mets right now, right? Yankees trade for somebody. Doesn't have to be a name, but where do you see their biggest gap as to we should address this yesterday?
Yeah, I think the big gap is at third base. I think the outfield's set. Right, I think you have a good rotation out there. We joke about Trent Grisham, and he's actually been playing really well recently, and I'm upset that Ash isn't here for this. But he went 4 for 5 tonight. He had 2 home runs over the weekend. No big deal.
Ash saw him live today, by the way.
He did, and you know what? He saw him live, and he had 4 hits. I'm so excited for him to be on next season.
Trent Grisham starting off with the double, Ash's first live at bat of seeing him, and then continuing on to a 4-hit game has got to be why he hasn't posted on the Discord or joined tonight. I just want to be clear about that.
And I think he's actually afraid to call in to the show tonight because he just knows. He knows.
Well, the problem is that Trent Grisham and the Yankees won, and he had a 4-hit game, and then he might want to dunk on the Mets, but the Mets were able to pull this one out today. So Ash is a little bit stuck in Braves and hating Trent Grisham land right now.
Yeah.
But the third base you're saying you think is the
I would say third base. You have Jazz there, and Jazz has been playing well. He's a little bit of a liability at third base. I think he's much better suited at second. But you have DJ. You have DJ there at second, and he's not the DJ LeMahieu of 2020 and 2021, where he's hitting well over 300 and just spanking the ball to right field.
So you brought up Jazz, so let's talk about Jazz for a bit, because he has been one of the bright spots for the Yankees since coming back from the IL, right?
Yeah.
And here's let's take a look at what's going on here in the Do You Like Jazz category.
Yeah, I mean, he came back from the IL on June 3rd. One of the things I want to point out here too, he has 11 RBIs and 10 runs, and I think that includes today's game as well. Do you guys know how many runs the Yankees have scored since June 3rd? 80. They've scored 80 runs since June 3rd, which tells me that Jazz Chisholm has contributed to 25% of the runs that the Yankees have scored since he's been on the IL. I mean, he is picking up where Judge is left off. Like, he is doing that, but the rest of it just doesn't seem like the rest of the team is. And he plays with such high energy. We saw it over the weekend against Baltimore. I mean, there was one play where Gary Sanchez almost was it Sanchez? No, it was the other backup catcher for Baltimore since Rutschman's out. Came down the line and he just kind of tried to sidestep him and just showed a really athletic play. He had an athletic play sliding into home plate on a close play on a ground ball. He's a high energy guy. He's a high energy guy, and when it's working out for him, it's great for the team, and it really is working out for him right now. And it seems like going on the IL was the reset that he needed. He's showing power. He's showing speed. I think he has 4 stolen bases since coming back as well. So it's great to see. It's great to see that he's having success at the plate. Again, my big thing at third base for him is he's not a natural third baseman. He very athletic guy. He can cover the hole, but he just doesn't have the arm. He just doesn't have the arm to play third base, and it can be a real liability for us.
Peter, do you like Jazz?
Oh, I love Jazz.
Do you like hardcore Jazz?
When the Yankees got him last year, I really praised the move. I thought it was the opposite of what the Yankee way normally is. The Yankees have always kind of shied away from louder players who, exciting. You look at Jeter, you look at Judge, they're very quiet, kind of keep to themselves. You don't really hear, even if they make quotes, they don't really go far because they don't say anything interesting.
Yeah.
But Jazz isn't that guy. Jazz is, he's exciting. He has opinions. He'll tell you about them. And I think that the Yankees really lacked that, and bringing him in, I think that was probably the best move they made in a couple of years, in my opinion.
No, and I think you bring up a good point. I mean, like you look at when the Yankees, re-signed Judge, right, and named him the captain. You see all of these changes the Yankees have made to their culture, right? It's no longer, we're stuck up guys. They have personality now, they have, and it's not the Brett Gardner, I'm going to bang my bat on the dugout, I'm going to be a fucking tryhard. No, it's guys with personality, it's guys with opinions. I mean, you had Verdugo last year, right? Same deal, guy who's very well, very outspoken, high energy guy. And Jazz is the same way too. And a lot of the rookies talk about, when they come up and, when they talk to Judge, and he's like, just be yourself. And you see that with Volpe, you see that with Wells. So it's a different Yankees. It's a different Yankees now. And I know I speak so highly of Aaron Judge, but there's no other way to speak of him. I mean, all around, just a great player, great character, and a great leader.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to speak about Aaron Judge. He's like the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
He's not Cal Raleigh, but I will say, by the way, before I go off on the Yankees for ruining a personality I loved in Jabba Chamberlain and the fact that they do have a culture now. Ty brought up something that I think is a very apt suggestion, Luke, for the Yankees. And how do you feel about that? He says, with the injuries in Arizona, I think Gino gets dealt and the Yankees will be in on that. I feel like Eugenio Suarez, although it may not necessarily blast over the defensive side, that's a guy that might actually fit what you guys are looking for right now. How do you feel about that?
No, I think it's a great bat in the middle of the lineup. Again, I don't think we have a shortage of left-handed bats. I think that was the issues in previous years. Again, I think it's just a liability at third base. how good is he? I'd have to look at the defensive metrics on him. I can't imagine they're too great, but the bat has been phenomenal this year, and that's so valuable in October.
Can't be worse than Josh Donaldson for you guys.
So bad.
So I will, on a more playful, but something that I wanted to ask you as a Yankees fan, and I'll ask Peter too, because I want to get the Mets and Yankees fan opinions here. I don't. And Ash brought it up again when he was talking about the fact that Ash was talking about the fact of like the Yankees and the jersey names, right? He saw it today. He's like, the Yankees need to have the names on the back of the jerseys. And we've talked about this playfully on our own, and I would love to hear your opinion on it. And I legitimately want to know, because you're a lifetime Yankees fan. You just talked about the fact the culture is changing, right? So do you think we're going to, or should we see a day where the Yankees start putting their names on the back of their jerseys?
No, I don't think so. And I think there's a fine line between culture and the history of the Yankees, right? Like there is an esteem to playing in pinstripes, playing in the Bronx. And one of those things is you don't need your name on the back of the jersey. People are going to know you. People are going to know that number. They're going to know that face on the pinstripes, and there's no reason to have that name back there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I honestly kind of wish the Mets would take the name off the back of their jersey for the only sole reason of, and I'll ask you this question, Luke. Luke, last year, Juan Soto played for you guys. What number jersey did he wear?
Oh, shoot. I can't remember.
20,
I can't remember. 22.
22. This year, you have a player who I know you're a big fan of, Ben Rice. He's number 22. So all the Yankee fans that went out and bought Juan Soto jerseys, congratulations. You have a Ben Rice jersey. So, with all these, the way these teams in MLB just takes, money from fans, it's one way you save some money. Just hold on to these jerseys. The number's going to go to somebody else. And if it doesn't, they retire it, and then you have a retired Yankee jersey. So
that was the most
we've got two perspectives on it. It's mine, which is the historical, and Peter is the you can save money by
100%. That was the most backhanded way to say, oh yeah, keep the numbers on the back of the jerseys, because hey, at least the Yankees got to repurpose those 22-1. So
no, it was literally just because that was like the one that comes to mind for me, just because of how much we've talked about Ben Rice on the show. It was Soto's on the Mets. I swear, it was literally just because this show is we are a Ben Rice podcast. So
we are. We're a Luke Weaver podcast, and we're a Ben Rice podcast. And some of us are Trent Grisham podcasts. Some of us aren't. Eventually, they'll buy in. I don't know. Maybe after 4 for 5 performance right in front of you, right in front of your face. Maybe then you buy in. But what do I know?
I think so. To give my perspective on, to be honest for a second, I do think I don't want the Mets to ever do it for what it's worth, Peter, ever. I think that's terrible because the Yankees have done it, and we can't do that because it'll turn around and say that we are like we're copying the big brother over there. I don't want that. So, and Ty, by the way, is right. We are a in caps David Peterson podcast now, but I think the Yankees have earned it historically, and it is something that is traditionally a Yankee thing. And I would feel really weird seeing the name on the back of the jersey. I feel like it takes away from the classic Yankee jerseys. And I know we can joke and be like, oh, I don't know that player. So sure, yeah, you can make that joke for guys like, Ash is mad at Trent Grisham for existing. But I think it's nice. I think it's a classy part of the culture that is a cool thing. Like, you're right. If someone wants to say, oh, I played for the Yankees, like we talk about this tribalism a lot on the Mets side, and it's fun for a lot of teams, right? But if you're going to put that air about, oh, you played for the Yankees, like, yeah, hang up your jersey that doesn't have a name on it. It's just you're Yankee first. Your name kind of matters lesser in that regard. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's like, yeah, that's the respect the organization commands. So at the end of the day, I understand why they do it, and I feel like they shouldn't shy away from that. I feel like that might be almost like spitting on the history of the team. As weird as it for me to say that as a Mets fan, but I think that's how I feel.
You do avoid some Hunter Dobbins controversies, though, if you just throw some names on the jersey. But Luke, honest question, because obviously, I'm not a Yankee fan, but hearing Yankee fans talk, I feel like whenever they see Yankees fans with the name on the back of their jersey, they kind of mock them. Is that true, or am I just is it like looked down upon?
I've had friends like that too, and I'll say it on air, I'll say it live, and you guys can record this, but I have Yankees jerseys with names on the back, and it kind of goes, oh no, but it goes back to the point. For me, like I haven't earned that honor to own a pinstripe jersey without a name on it. No, seriously, like these guys have worked through the gauntlet to get up to the major leagues and not just play in the major leagues, play for the New York Yankees. Like they've earned that right to not have their names on the back of the jerseys. I haven't. I'm just a fan.
Well, we're not talking about customized jerseys. We're talking about like buying a Judge jersey with Judge on the back.
Yeah, like I'm going to get 99 with Judge's name on the back. Like I'm not going to get just 99.
I like that you're giving us ammo to make fun of you. Love when you give me ammo to make fun of you, honestly.
Please. I mean, I'm just an easy target, as we've discussed today. Like I'm just the easiest target to hit.
We can't miss the target. The name's on the back. That's how we can figure it out.
Not my name.
I would love to get you one that just says Luke, because it just kind of like ruins the everything that we could do wrong in that situation. Is give you not only to give you a name, but to give you a name that hasn't played for the historic, amazing New York Yankees.
I'll accept not Jeff or not Kim. Those are the only two I'll accept on the back of my jersey.
Not Kim would be funny if you guys trade for like Hassan King or something like that, because that would crack me the hell up.
Yeah. Or if we had someone named Kim who worked in our front office for years and then became the GM of the Marlins, that'd be a
good GM of the Marlins before being unceremoniously removed. But moving on from that, so what else is going on in New York? I can tell you one thing, and that is that the NBA draft is going on tonight, and nobody really cares. Because the Knicks don't have a first-round pick because they've moved most of them towards McCall Bridges and other players, and they don't have a second-round pick for tomorrow's night. The reason why they don't have a second-round pick is that they got charged with tampering for the Jalen Brunson contract. All they've had to deal with for that is giving up a second-round pick. I'm pretty sure everybody in the Knicks organization would unanimously agree that they'd gladly donate even a second-round pick for the sake of being able to have Jalen Brunson and what he's been able to do.
Don't they have the Grizzlies second-round pick?
They do have a pick in the draft. They will be able to make, but not in the first round.
Okay.
And since there's no other basketball teams in New York, there was really not much for me to cover in terms of draft stuff. It is very possible. The Knicks were scouting a few names, so perhaps by next week I'll talk to you about who their second-round pick is. But they've invested a lot in development, and I'm pretty happy about that so far. But the major point, I suppose, in the New York basketball world right now is not the draft, but the finals being over. Ending the way that they did with Tyrese Halliburton taking a severe injury, and we wish him well. But Absolutely. At the end of the day, they lose the finals. The Thunder win. The East, with the Celtics trading away Porzingis and Jrue Holiday and rumors of trading away Jaylen Brown as well, the East is now open for somebody to take advantage. And I know you guys aren't real big like basketball guys and stuff like that, but I'm sure you've heard about that and you've heard the buzz around New York basketball right now and the thoughts that maybe the Knicks have a window next year.
Yeah, I mean, I know in betting apps, the Knicks are the betting favorite to make it out of the East. So, I mean, even if that's just because, there's two players on two good teams that got hurt, like, I mean, obviously, we don't root for that. It sucks. Like, I don't like Halliburton, but, like, I don't want to, like, I can't think of a worse way to go out Game 7 of the finals. That's terrible. And, like, I feel bad for him. But, it is what it is. It's sport. That happens. It happened to the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, and we saw how that turned out. So, like, you got to take advantage. You have to take advantage of the situation, as cold as that sounds. So, hopefully get a fucking coach and let's start making some moves, because you can't really make moves until you get the coach, because if you make all these trades and he didn't want any of the players, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and it's really hard to project out when you don't have a head coach either, But again, the way the roster is constructed, for sure. I mean, I agree with Peter. I mean, I think the Knicks have the best chance of getting out of the East. I think their biggest competition is probably in Cleveland, but they also haven't been able to run the gauntlet in the East either. Milwaukee might be trading away Giannis, so not much there.
Detroit's good, but they've already stated that they're going to build internally. They're not necessarily looking to trade for any talent. So
I think there's a possibility of Detroit taking the next step there. I think Orlando made a couple of moves this week too, and I think they might have made their team a little bit better. I don't know. I feel like Miami always figures it out. Like, it's just a weird thing with them. Like, and it just. I know they don't have Jimmy Buckets anymore, but I feel like they're almost always in it. There's no other team in New York, so you don't have to worry about that. Trying to think who else could be contending with the Knicks next year.
You did make a good point about obviously finding the coach. I mean, they let go of Tibbs, and you can think about it when you think about the fact that Tibbs is gone. You can understand it when you think about the fact that he's the reason Tyrese Halliburton is hurt, right? Because how could Tibbs do that to a starting lineup and cause somebody to be injured on another team? It was terrible. It's only Tibbs' fault when starting players get injured. So how could Tom Thibodeau injure another starting team? It's terrible when you think about it. No, I do think it almost, if the Knicks don't make a commanding, strong move coach-wise right now, it almost looks worse because – in general, I might have turned around and said, listen, if you knew this is how the East was going to play out, you keep Tibbs and give him that shot for sure. When they let him go, my first thing was like, man, he deserved one more year, and they feel like they had a better vision. Right now, it doesn't look like they're so sure about that, and Tibbs could have brought you to the playoffs, and he got the team to overachieve. We might have been able to see it. So I'm starting to feel those nerves just a little bit that maybe, just maybe, it was the wrong decision to let Tibbs go. And I'm nerved about this. You see that Ty brings up here the Raptors, the Magic, and the 76ers. I don't have any fear about the 76ers at all. Because Joel Embiid is not really caring about basketball. Supposedly he'll be back for training camp and stuff like that, but I just don't see the 76ers as real contenders. The Magic I respect as contenders. I thought they were a solid season. They added to their team so far, and we've got a full offseason to go. And the Raptors have got some things to figure out, but they're a good team too. I think the Knicks can beat them. But the East is far more open than it ever has been in these recent years because the Pacers are going to be without Hallie. The Celtics are going to be without Tatum and are already selling off. And the Cavs, as good as they are, have not been able to show that they can manage it in the playoffs because they were the number 1 seed going into these playoffs, and they were the least talked about seed because they just got quickly dispatched.
Yeah. And I'll go, I mean, not just the East, but the NBA is wide open. Right. And this is such a different NBA than what it was a decade ago. Right. I got so sick and tired of the LeBron versus Curry 3 years in a row. It was so boring. And now 6 different NBA champions in the last 6 years. There is so much more parity in the league now, or less parity in the league now. So much more competition. And it's really great to see these new teams rise to the top.
Yeah, and even in the case of like the Celtics, who historically won a ton of titles, that was Tatum's first ship. This was SGA's first ship for the Thunder. They're going to be in it again next year. The Rockets put their chips in and went ahead and got Kevin Durant. So the West is going to be interesting in that regard. The NBA draft being tonight, the Mavericks did get the expected first pick in Cooper Flagg. So the Mavericks are going to be in that race somehow or another. The West is going to be much harder than the East, though, is my takeaway. I'm kind of happy to be in the East in that regard, unless we get some huge shift in the offseason that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. I mean, and the West runs through OKC right now. I mean, they're the best team in the world, and it looks like they're going to run it back with the same team next year.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but we've covered our whining about the Mets and the Yankees and the Knicks for just about the hour. Gentlemen, we've done what we need to do. So as is customary, I'm going to bounce around and ask you guys for some final takes. And let's start with you, Luke. Do you have anything to share with anybody as your final take for the evening?
Just some New York Rangers stuff. They officially traded away their first-round pick, so they will not be picking in the first round. So I have just as good a chance as anybody else to be drafted by the New York Rangers tomorrow. Wish me luck. But no, it's. I think it's the right move by the Rangers. They had the option either to trade away this year's pick or next year's pick. They decided to keep next year's pick, and I think that's a smart move because The draft is not that strong this year. It's going to be a lot stronger next year. You still keep the pick for next year, and you have the option to again trade away if you want to build a deadline. And it makes a statement to the team. This is Chris Drury's way of saying, hey guys, like this team is built to win. We're not bringing in the cavalry from the draft. We have the guys we need right now. But I'll flip it around back to him. They got to win this year. Like they have to win this year, or he's got to go. That's just it. That's just it. So right move to get rid of the pick, and we'll see what they have in the second round.
Peter, what do you got for me?
My talking point to close the show isn't actually even a New York centered thing. I don't know if you guys saw the thing with Marte, Ketel Marte. I think it was yesterday. But the fan said something about his mom, and he got very emotional about it. I'm not a big Rob Manfred fan, but good on the White Sox and MLB for banning him from all stadiums indefinitely. I know we're all fans, and sometimes we get very frustrated with players, or you want to smack talk a player on another team. They are humans at the end of the day, and there's certainly lines, and that line was obviously crossed. And school of the White Sox, they put a message on the scoreboard when Marte was hitting, that they support him. And it's just, as fans, you got to do better. Like there's lines, and you don't cross certain lines. You don't talk about people's family like that. Like that's fucked up. So good on baseball. They don't always do the same. Major League Baseball doesn't always do the best thing, but they did here. So good on them.
Yeah, it's funny because we don't have some overlap, because I did want to talk about that myself. I was considering that being my talking point. I'm really glad that they went ahead and they decided to kick him out, and they took such a quick action on it, because you could see that, and I'm sure you were able to see it too, Luke, because you nodded your head, so you saw it.
Yeah,
Ketel Marte was really upset by whatever was said, and I believe his mom was in a vehicular accident or something, and that's how she passed away, right? Yeah, and that felt really bad to hear that this is a thing. We joke with each other all the time. We make tons of jokes with each other, and it's good-natured ribbing, and that's fine. I think that's the nature of sports, is that we are here to joke with each other, make a few comments here and there, but there's never really going to be a situation where we want to talk about anybody's family under any circumstances, and especially his mom passing away in an accident like that. So I did feel really bad when it came down to that, because I think that's screwed up. And I'm really glad that they reacted the way they did, and they immediately were like, hey, we don't condone that. We don't want that. And I think people are just so comfortable with the idea of not getting hit in the mouth. And I mean that sincerely. It's not great. You feel like there's no repercussions. It's still screwed up. You're going to get away with it. And so, yeah, all the worst that happens to you is you're banned from baseball. That would be ruinous for me. But at the end of the day, I think that was horrible. I do think that was horrible. And I'm glad that they reacted to that. And before I comment, I don't know if you want to say anything on it, Luke, so I don't want to cut you off.
No, I kind of agree. It's just, as fans, there's this level of comfortability because you're behind the wall and you feel like you can say whatever you want, but you can't. And there's certain lines you don't cross, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I think family definitely crosses the line. You want to sit in right field and yell Mike Stanton the whole game. I think that's playful, and I think that's fine. But yeah, again, you talk about dead moms and girlfriends and wives, and you're crossing a line that you shouldn't.
Yeah, I think it's rough, and I felt bad about it when I heard it. At the end of the day, I don't want anything like that to happen. I'm glad that you brought it up. I do want to say I think that you brought up a lot of, Peter, you tend to bring up things that I like when we do our last moments, because I'm going to go in a direction that's completely stupid. And I'm glad you mentioned the Marte thing, because it's important to talk about, because I want to have a little fun for a second and say bad things about Tom Brady. So I, as some of you attended, I attended Fanatics Fest over the weekend. And, you can see that I had a good time. I posted some photos with the boys and everything like that. And I'll give you an example of me here with Xavier Scruggs, right? And this will come up in a second. Xavier Scruggs, former MLB player, and he's holding a UFC belt that belongs to me. And that's very nice. That's oh, this is a cool thing. Not meeting him was really nice. and that belt means a lot to me. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Let's see where this belt's going to travel. And then I meet this dipshit, Tom Brady. I meet Tom Brady before I'm doing a WWE entrance, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is Tom Brady. You know, his team wants to use my belt for him to walk out, right? And so I'm standing there next to Tom Brady, right, as Tom Brady goes ahead and borrows my belt and sunglasses to go walk out for an entrance that has been publicized. That is my belt again, right? So, again, my personal belt to Tom Brady of people who I can't stand. And Tom Brady goes out there and he drops my belt. He just dropped my belt and threw it almost to the crowd as if it meant nothing. Tom Brady, of all people. And this is only going to get traction between our group because, you know, we've got our small little subset here. But Tom Brady's kind of a thoughtless guy when you think about it, because that's just terrible. Taking somebody's personal property for a prop moment, for a moment that is supposed to be nice. You're showing it to the kids. You're showing it to everybody. And what do? You drop the belt. You drop the belt. There's videos out there on Reddit of you coming out with my belt and then just dropping it like a horrible human being. I can't believe it. I would never do something like that to someone's property. I would never do that to Luke's Yankee jerseys that have names on them, even if I don't like them. You can see him like, coming out here, like holding my belt again, my belt, hold here. And he just dropped it like it was nothing. And I didn't need any extra reason to talk about Tom Brady, but he gave me one. So, Tom, if you're out there, I know you don't care because I'm just some guy from Queens. And I know you don't have feelings as the Brady man you are, but you hurt somebody. You hurt somebody important to the New York Power Hour. And, I just can't let it go. I feel like I'm going to have to just start saying negative things about you. That's who I am now. It just changed my opinion of you as a person at all. As somebody who watched the Jets for a year, I did not have any opinion of you at all. But now I have an opinion of you, and it is that you are not deserving of the praise that you get, man. Horrible, horrible stuff. No. Anyway, you laugh at me. My feelings are hurt. You laugh at my hurt feelings. You're terrible.
No, I'm proud of you as a New York Jets fan. Fuck Tom Brady. Like, it's great. Like, I can get on board with this.
But no, for anyone who's watching, and hopefully Tom Brady is somehow going to get wind of this, Tom, you got to make it right. You did somebody wrong. A guy who probably didn't like you in the first place, but you did me wrong, Tom. And on that note, we're going to close out the New York Power Hour for this episode. For Luke, for Peter, and myself, thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your night.